Teachers of Reddit, have you ever seen the quiet kid fight? I've been a teacher for over a decade, and I've seen my fair share of fights. Hot-headed kids throwing weak punches, overly dramatic wrestling matches, and even some laughably bad attempts where both students just miss every swing. But there's one fight that stands out. The day our quietest student absolutely destroyed the school bully. Let me introduce you to Ethan. Ethan was that student. The one who sat at the back of the class, never spoke unless called on, always turned in his work on time, and seemed completely content to just exist in the background. If you asked him a question, you'd get a one-word answer. If you gave him a group project, he'd just quietly do all the work. He wasn't shy, just silent. And then there was Trevor, our resident bully and all-around nightmare. Trevor was the kind of kid who lived for attention. Loud, obnoxious, and always looking for someone to pick on. He didn't just target one person. He went after anyone he thought was weak. And unfortunately, Ethan? His favorite target. The bullying that went too far. Trevor had been messing with Ethan for months, knocking his books off his desk just to watch him pick them up, mocking the way he never spoke, calling him a mute, stealing his pencils, his notebooks, even once grabbing his backpack and dumping everything out in the middle of the hallway. And Ethan never reacted. Not once. No anger. No frustration. Just calmly picking up his things and moving on. I thought maybe he was just waiting for it to pass, like so many quiet kids do. But I was so wrong. Because one day, Trevor made a mistake. The fight that no one expected. It happened in the cafeteria. I was sitting at my usual lunch duty spot when I noticed Trevor and his group laughing loudly. That was never a good sign. Then I saw what they were laughing at. Ethan was sitting alone, eating and reading a book like he always did, when Trevor walked up with an unopened bottle of chocolate milk. Before anyone could react, he upended the entire thing over Ethan's head. The entire cafeteria went dead silent. Ethan just sat there for a second, milk dripping down his hair, over his face, onto his clothes. He didn't shout. He didn't cry. He just removed his glasses, set them carefully on the table, and stood up. Trevor was not ready. Trevor laughed. "Oh, what? You finally gonna do something, nerd?" Ethan didn't say a word. He just moved. Fast. Before Trevor even knew what was happening, Ethan grabbed him, twisted, and flipped him over his own shoulder. Trevor hit the ground so hard that the entire cafeteria gasped. Before he could even scramble up, Ethan pinned him down and pressed his forearm into Trevor's chest. Then, in the calmest voice I have ever heard, he said, "Don't touch me again." Trevor, our big, tough bully, just lay there, completely frozen. And then, Ethan just got up, picked up his glasses, picked up his tray, and walked away like nothing happened. Trevor didn't move. He just sat there, completely humiliated. Of course, admin had to get involved, and both of them were sent to the office. But here's the thing. Ethan didn't get in trouble. Turns out, Ethan had been training in judo since he was 6 years old. He just never needed to use it, until that day. And Trevor? He never touched Ethan again. Ever. In fact, he barely even spoke for a week. He wasn't expelled, but his reputation? Gone. From that day forward, Ethan went back to being his quiet, mysterious self. But now, everyone knew. You do not mess with the quiet kid. Story 2. Teachers of Reddit. What's the most unexpected thing you've seen a bully do? I've been a teacher for a long time, and I've dealt with all kinds of bullies. The loud ones who enjoy humiliating others, the sneaky ones who make their victims' lives miserable when teachers aren't looking, and the charming ones who manipulate their way out of trouble. But one experience changed how I looked at bullying forever. It involved a student I'll call Jason. Jason wasn't just a bully. He was the bully. 6 feet tall at 15 years old, built like a linebacker. Had been suspended multiple times for shoving kids into lockers, stealing lunch money, and physically threatening classmates. Teachers dreaded having him in their class because he was openly defiant and barely did any work. He had this look, the kind that made weaker students shrink away the second he walked into a room. He was unstoppable. Or so I thought. Because one day, I saw something that still haunts me to this day. The unexpected moment. It was after school, and I was staying late to grade essays. Our school had a volunteer tutoring program where older students could help younger ones with homework in the library. I was walking past when I saw something that made me stop in my tracks. Jason, the same Jason who had terrorized kids for years, was sitting at a table with a tiny, frail-looking boy. I recognized the kid immediately. Michael. Michael was one of the quietest, most anxious students in the entire school. He was the kind of kid who flinched every time someone spoke too loudly. He never made eye contact, barely spoke above a whisper, and had zero friends. But the weirdest part? Jason was helping him with his math homework. And not in a lazy, whatever way. He was actually explaining the problems. Patiently, carefully. No mocking, no rolling his eyes, no treating Michael like an idiot. It was completely opposite of the Jason I knew. I had to say something. Jason? I asked. He looked up, startled. For a split second, I saw his usual mask snap back into place. His usual smirk, his cocky attitude, like he was about to crack a joke or pretend he didn't care. But then, he just sighed. Michael's my little brother. I blinked. What? I had no idea. They had different last names, and Jason never even acknowledged Michael at school. I must have looked shocked because Jason smirked, but this time, it wasn't his usual arrogant smirk. It looked bitter. Yeah, didn't exactly want people to know. I sat down, curious. This was the same kid who had made so many students' lives miserable. And yet, here he was, tutoring a kid he had never once acknowledged in public. So, I hesitated. Why do you help him here? Jason shrugged. At home, it's different. I gotta look out for him. There was something in his tone. Before I could say anything, he added. So quietly I almost didn't hear it. He can't handle what I can. That's when it hit me. Jason wasn't just a bully. He was a shield. A hard truth. I didn't say anything at first. I just let his words sink in. Because suddenly, everything made sense. Jason had spent years being the toughest, meanest, scariest kid in school. But now I was seeing why. He was making sure that all the cruelty, all the bullying, all the pain, stopped with him. He was a wall between his little brother and the world. And the worst part? He thought that was the only way to protect him. Jason never let anyone know they were brothers because, in his mind, that would make Michael a target. So he absorbed all the negativity, all the violence, all the reputation, so that Michael wouldn't have to. A lesson I never forgot. I wish I could say that Jason had some big redemption arc, that he changed overnight, became a better person, apologized to all the kids he hurt. But life doesn't work like that. Jason was too deep into his role as the school's biggest bully. And by the time I figured out the truth, the damage had already been done. But that moment, it changed me. Because I realized that, sometimes, bullies aren't born. They're made. And sometimes, the ones who cause the most pain are the ones who have been carrying it the longest.